Did man rise up from the protoplasmic crud and evolve over millions of years? Or are his origins from within the world of the X-Files? Was planet Earth visited and populated by an ancient godlike race of superior aliens who spawned a new species of servants? Are humans simply the result of biological engineering that we are now just discovering as possible? The fact is, these ancient alien astronauts can be shown to have not only spawned mankind as a genetic species, but also to have originated our very religions and belief systems. They are the gods of ancient times. They are the holy warrior heroes in their silver chariots flying across the sky. They wielded mighty weapons of mass destruction. And now, thousands of years later, we are rediscovering this truth. We have very strong historical evidence that they came. We have thousands of stories in myths and religious texts speaking of aliens visiting Earth, creating mankind, ruling over them for millennia, and even mating with them. We even know that a series of great battles ensued between the originators and their offspring. All of this gave rise to our world religions, and it is in the sacred texts and historical writings that we shall discover the truth about the aliens that made us. These alien astronauts are the very roots of humanity itself. These ancient astronauts gave humanity knowledge, religion, and culture. It was a mirror of their own mother culture. They aided in the building of huge and complex structures across the globe, from the pyramids of Egypt to the stone heads of Easter Island. They aided us to worship them. Over time, our memory of these alien visitors has become our religions. The giants of the Bible are everywhere. Take the Assyrian or Babylonian fish deity Oannes, or Dagon. Here is a prime example of an alien god from ancient times. It is a being with humanoid features, but also part fish or with scales. Oannes came to the people of Sumeria and gave them vast knowledge: agriculture, mathematics, art, healing, and more. Eventually, this tale would be remembered in the Bible of the Christians as Jonah, who was swallowed by a fish. Both Jonah and Oannes are the same word, and the Bible calls the supposed whale a large fish. In the Bible, Jonah is special to the heavenly God. He is a prophet or speaker on his behalf. He is sent on a mission to pass on God's knowledge to the people. It is only by being launched from the mouth of a giant fish and landing safely on shore that Jonah could get the stupid people to listen to him. Apparently, it's perfectly okay to believe that all of this is true, and yet ridiculous to believe that this is a folk memory of a very real, special, intellectual being trying to get humans to learn. The image of Jonah emerging from the mouth of the giant fish is in fact no different to the images of Oannes, or half-man, half-fish being. It is an alien creature sent by the alien gods to impart knowledge. We do not have to believe that our ancient monuments and artifacts were made by ancient aliens. We simply need to see that they were influenced by them, that they are mankind's ideas of the things they saw and experienced. Depictions of alien creatures with seemingly omnipotent knowledge and power. If I were to step back in time 2,000 or 3,000 years, I too would appear strange and yet all-powerful to our ancestors. my knowledge could alter the course of human history. How much more powerful would be an ancient alien visiting Earth many more thousands of years before? Great monuments around the world still to this day hold secrets within them that man in the 21st century has yet to unlock. How can it be that the builders of Stonehenge 4 or 5,000 years ago knew so much more than we do? How can it be that the great pyramids of Egypt are still holding on to their secrets? It is simple. The knowledge has been lost, or it left in craft and flew back to heaven. Gods of ancient times were very much like humans, and yet different. Zeus, the high god of ancient Greece, could change shape, and he was not the only one. Our religions are a direct result of ancient mankind's contact with alien visitors. Gods that could change the weather, bring fire and lightning out of the sky, make the oceans bubble, wipe out whole nations, fly across the sky in war chariots, rise from the dead, change shape, raise the dead, walk on water, command armies of flying, glorious angels, and so much more. Where these ancient beings came from, we simply do not know. But they came. We can say with relative certainty that they came at least 5,000 years before Christ, and probably in Sumeria, Turkey, and Africa, for it is here that civilization emerged. There is one all-encompassing being that rules them all, and which has entered into every religion, fable, and myth across the globe. It has been misunderstood as a reptile by some, but the truth is that our ancestors saw this wise, all-knowing, and healing deity as a serpent. In order to understand the sheer amount of evidence there is for this ancient alien race of serpent gods, we have to look at the evidence piece by piece. In the beginning, we pointed out that mankind may very well have been genetically modified so as to be reborn. This then must lead us to the origin story of mankind, and a great many of them all speak of the same thing: a serpent-related origin. Let us look at the most famous of these, Adam and Eve. Remarkably, we find that both are in fact related to ancient serpent worship from their Sumerian origins, a religion that is in fact worldwide. The word Hevia is the root of Eve and means female serpent. It is connected to the same Arabic root which means both life and serpent. So Eve is the origin of life, and she is a female serpent. But where did she come from? The Persians called the constellation Serpents, the little Eva, or Eve. This is a folk memory of the origin of the mother of mankind. Little Eve, the female serpent, came from the heavens. But what about Adam? In Old Akkadian, Ad means father, and Adam was closely associated in legend with Seth, Saturn, Thoth, or Tatus, who were all serpent deities. So Adam is the father serpent of mankind. Therefore, the children of Adam and Eve must therefore also be serpents. In fact, Abel means serpent shining, and Cain was called the son of serpents. So Adam and Eve, the progenitors of the human race, were serpents from heaven and gave birth to shining serpents. Why would this be, if not to explain the origin of our species to those with the eyes to see? So many of the myths of the snake culture crossed over during the vast period that encompassed the many rising civilizations, and so many of the myths emerged within the fables, folk tales, and religions of Greece, Rome, and Egypt. They took on the ideas of the earlier beliefs and fostered them, adding their own unique element. The Western mythologies then took these classical structures and built upon them further. But we can see the prevalence of the serpent culture even within the names of the various places and deities from antiquity. Eusebius is credited with announcing to the world that even the Zoroastrians called their expanse of heaven after the serpent. This is true of many cultures. The heavens were described as the place of serpents, the same serpents that originated mankind and gave him knowledge, just like the snake in the Garden of Eden. In Chaldea, that most ancient of places, the city of Ophrys on the Tigris is named after the serpent, and it is said that the people there were addicted to the divination and worship of the serpent. The serpent worship passed on swiftly into Egypt, where the deity was known initially as Kanof, Kanef, and Kanef. Later it became Ab, or Aub, the royal serpent or basilisk. One of the chief deities was Vulcan, who Cicero styled as Opus, another serpent term. This was the same god as that most austere Osiris, the sun god. Osiris was often known as Ab-El, or Pythosol, with great pillars of stone dedicated to his worship. These pillars became known later on in Grecian times as Obelos, or Obeliscus, now seen as the obelisk related to basilisk. They reached towards the heavens, back home to where they came from, as if pointing a finger. Think about that for a moment. One of the most iconic of monuments in the world is the obelisk, named after the serpent deities that gave mankind the knowledge to build them, and it points home. With this knowledge, a new investigation should be undertaken to work out precisely where these ancient monuments pointed in the heavens. Are these really clues left behind by our ancient alien gods for us to discover when the time is right? We probably do have the oldest serpent symbols in the Sumerian legends. Their word for dragon or winged serpent was Ushum, and their origin can be traced back to 5000 BC in the story of Zu. However, the Chinese also have a claim that dragons can be traced back to 5000 BC, which would not be surprising if the ancient aliens had visited Earth at that time. Is this our evidence of just when they arrived? In Central Africa, the peculiar and famous Dogon people have a divine serpent called Lib, who is the first member of the living dead. It is a serpent who has the first power to overcome actual death. He is not a man, for no man can overcome death. He is a serpent god, which had come to them from above. In the fantastic array of Egyptian legend, there are those gods which have always stood the test of popularity. One of these is Osiris, who, it was said, entered the tail of the great serpent, was drawn through its body, and came out through the mouth, born anew. Did the aliens then have the power to bring man back from the dead, like the fictional tales in Stargate? Another great and powerful name in the Egyptian pantheon has to be Isis. Sacred snakes were said to have lived in the temples of Isis and gave oracles. Just replace sacred snakes with aliens, and we have powerful beings able to offer up wise counsel and predict the future. It was believed that horrendous disasters would befall Egypt if the snakes ever decided to leave. Egypt's mother of creation, Peruachet, was also a serpent. The hieroglyphic snake stood for goddess and eventually Uraeus, later to become one of the secret names for God in medieval alchemy, a subtle allusion to God being both male and yet female. This Egyptian Uraeus, or Asp, was a guardian god of the Delta region. It is the name for snake, which is seen on the foreheads of It is the Egyptian cobra, and it was said to be the snake Cleopatra chose to use when committing suicide. It would be the bite of the asp which would lead her into eternal life. This is how it was seen, not as a terrible and wasteful suicide as we would see it today, but a stealing of her soul from those who would oppress her and delivering herself up to life immortal in the other world. Take all of this now and turn it towards the ancient aliens. We have the power of the serpent, giving the queen the ability to travel to the other world, a world where the gods lived. This is the immortality that the serpent can bring, and they were all known as Shining Ones. The term, in fact, seems to be around the globe. The Sumerian El means simply bright or shining. The Old Irish Ailil means shining. Old Cornish El means shining. Elf means shining, hence elves as tall and mysterious angelic beings. The Inca Ilah is bright or to shine. Babylonian Elu is to shine. There are more, but they all relate to the gods or special shining beings that created, taught, and controlled mankind. They owned us. Baal, the deity often spoke of as the Lord in the Bible, is also seen as a shining one in the Old Testament and is called the Owner. At that time, there were so many owners, or shining ones. In fact, there was one for each village. These are the governors of men, shining reptilian alien beings with vast knowledge, and their existence has been passed down to us in religious texts, fables, folklore, and myths. According to General Albert Pike, the famous Masonic historian, in Morals and Dogma, the Elohim were the host of heaven, ascending and descending to pass messages to and from God or the leader Yahweh. These beings came down to us from the heavens and back again. If this is not evidence of ancient aliens, then what is? Some of the shining ones were termed watchers and are akin to the angels of the Lord. Yahweh Elohim means simply leader of the shining ones. So, now we have these plural Elohim or shining ones as gods being above even the kings and supplying watchers to watch over man. The Egyptian Book of the Dead calls these watchers Anubis and Horus. They came from a faraway place. According to the legend of Votan from Mesoamerica, Votan was the serpent who was a descendant of the race of Can and was called a guardian or watcher. The Hebrews termed these watchers as those who watch. In the Greek, this is translated as gigantes or giants, a race that even the 907 BC writer Hesiod featured as being monstrous due to their serpentine aspect. Now we can understand the role of the giants that are seen across the world of folklore as the presence of the alien watchers. This story of discovery becomes ever more exciting when we see things like this clearly, and old stories only brought back to life, but are given a new dimension. Suddenly, fanciful ideas become the foundation of a whole new history of the world. that stories people have retold for generations are in fact vessels of hidden knowledge, and that we are the ones who can now see the truth revealed for the first time. There are many more forms of serpent deity within the pantheon of Egyptian lords, with many attributes, and we really do not need to go through all of them. But there is one Egyptian god which moved away from his origin and is now found in our Western Christian world as Satan. And remember, Satan is mixed with Lucifer, the light bearer that fell to earth. One of the attributes of the Egyptian Set was the serpent, and as Set-hen he became Satan when the Hebrews emigrated. No wonder then that the image of Satan is and has been seen as the snake. Now, think about an alien creature when you hear the attributes of this remarkable being. Set, an important god, was able to glide over the ground silently, observing human life. He embodied immortality. He was the son of the earth, being reborn each day from the womb of the Great Mother. He was the consort of the goddess Setet, which is said again and again to have eventually evolved into the very biblical temper of Eve. Set later even appeared in Russian folklore as Kosheki, the Deathless, moving on to become the dragon that must be slain to receive immortal life. All of this is pure alien science fiction. But what of Greece? The Greeks had many terms for snakes, such as aspis, drakon, eknida, herpeton, and ophis, the later becoming the name for an early Christian sect, the earlier Essene-Ophite cult who wrote the New Testament. Kraken is also a powerful Greek serpent, this time of the sea. Kr is Sanskrit for creator, and this kind of etymology must show the powerful links between the various cultures of the ancient world, and the fact that all cultures saw the ancient alien serpent breed to have been creators of mankind. A Kraken means great fire, or light, or great one. Egyptian mythology states, Aker keepeth ward over the wicked. The great light watched over the ordinary people, the humans. The same root gives us Cerberus, the three-headed serpent dog, which guards Hades or the otherworld. Ichthus, the secret name of Jesus, is claimed by most etymologists to be the same as Iacchus or Bacchus, and as Longfield Beatty points out in The Garden of the Golden Flower, quote, Bacchus bore the same mystery name as Jesus, Ichthus, the fish, end quote. Bacchus was the son of Zeus and is the same as Dionysus, who was born as a serpent and represented as a bearded man crowned with a vine and ivy, which are two plants associated with the serpent. Bacchus is a serpent god. The sign of the serpent was Ichthus, which strangely became a fish when taken on by a new Messiah, Jesus. This is basically the same imagery as Oannes, or Jonah, as we have already seen. Bacchus is also, and strangely, the guardian spirit of Islam. According to Midas, Bacchus possessed the Philosopher's Stone. That is, he could turn water into wine or give new life. And indeed, it was Bacchus who gave Midas the golden touch, a gift both wonderful and deadly, like the snake. And we should remember that gold was the symbol for immortality. So we may have here, in the story of King Midas, a subtle lesson. The golden touch of Midas was both wonderful and yet deadly. One had to use it sparingly, and it symbolically pointed towards immortality, bestowed upon Midas by a serpent deity. Again, amazing power. It was life-creating and life-resurrecting power bestowed by an ancient and mysterious serpent group of deities that came down from the heavens. We have found that there are mythological and legendary links between all the messianic deities, and now this is a symbolic link. All the saviors from classical and Hebraic literature are there simply to bring us knowledge and eternal life, and their tool is the serpent. The Greek god, Ophiuchus, which means he who holds the serpent, came to represent Asclepius, the ancient healer now seen in the stars, because that is where he returned. But what about the greatest of Greek gods, Zeus? Surely he would show some signs that related him in some way to this ancient truth? Zeus utilized his own angels, the Greek daemons, who would later become Christian demons, and which were invisible beings assigned by Zeus as guardian spirits to guide and give wise counsel. They appeared as handsome youths or wise serpents. This greatest of Greek gods utilized the snake to avoid death and to bestow wisdom. Although we know in today's age that Zeus was not real, we do know that these myths and legends were created or adapted in order to make certain points as folk memories of a very real period of contact with alien species. The question is, why did the ancient alien gods come to Earth, genetically alter or create the human race and teach them? Were they looking for worshippers? Would a superior race really desire such a thing? Or were they looking for slaves? Or are we seeing this in a too human way? Are we able to reason their motives? Some have said that the aliens needed slaves to mine for gold. But modern science has discovered that gold is everywhere in the universe and easily available from meteors and other objects in space. Why would they come light years to collect gold? Let us suggest a new theory, and one that relates to all that has been said. The one main thing that comes up again and again is immortality. Could it be that our ancient alien race were dying? Could it be that they needed new genetic stock to breed with or possess? Today, scientists believe that the ancient astronaut hypothesis is actually not wrong and may in fact be true, but they have as yet not discovered evidence. Maybe they have not been looking in the right place. Maybe they should look in the Bible. The book of Genesis, chapter 6, verses 1, 2, and 4 states, "When human beings began to number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose." The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. This is extremely clear. A group called the Nephilim, or the sons of God, were on earth, and they saw the women and mated with them. What is all this about, if not a written account of shining beings coming down to earth and mating? The King James Version translates Nephilim as giants. Amazingly, the very idea of there being giants upon the land is not only to be found in the older texts of the Bible, they are in fact to be found across the world. This is clear evidence that these starmen were of a larger stature. Across Europe, great monuments such as Stonehenge were said by oral tradition to have been built by these giants. This makes complete sense, because these monuments are from the exact period we are discussing and were observatories of the heavens. Great technological feats by ancient man indeed. These advances were made by the great shining ones, the serpent alien beings that gave rise to ancient Sumeria. The Sumerians invented cuneiform writing and were way ahead of their time, having advanced knowledge in music, poetry, art, mathematics, astronomy, and science. For the ancient Sumerians, music was a tool that helped them describe the cosmos. In Sumerian creation myth, the angels known as the Anunnaki, or great sons of Anu, were the founders of their culture. The names angel, Anunnaki, and Anakim have so much in common. They are indicative of the ancient alien ancestors who brought the secrets to the rest of the world. Interestingly, Anunnaki is phonetically similar to the Hebrew Anakim, the giant race, and also Angakok, the shaman, from Greenland to Alaska. These ancient alien beings are in the Bible as angels and gods, or Elohim, because the Hebrews utilized the Sumerian myths when writing their own. The book of Enoch in the Bible tells us that these sons of God were in fact called Watchers and numbered around 200. An elite group of beings that watched over mankind. They are said to have descended to earth and bred with humans. They had offspring, and these were called Nephilim, or giants. Mankind was given great knowledge by these Watchers and Nephilim, but eventually, the Nephilim and mankind turned against each other, and God stepped in. The humans who had gained the greatest knowledge, the Watchers and the Nephilim, were destroyed in the Great Flood. This knowledge imparted upon mankind was metallurgy, cosmetics, sorcery, astrology, astronomy, and meteorology. It appears that the gods were worried that mankind had become too powerful, a threat to themselves, and so with their great power they caused a flood, leaving behind only the remnant of mankind. In the Bible, the Watchers are described as the fallen angels. Is this one of the first ever science fiction books? Or is this a bastardized version of history retold by the new Hebrew religion in their own book? Is it really a historical account of ancient aliens visiting Earth to observe them? Did they then ignore their own orders and breed with humans? Is this the point of genetic manipulation written down as the word breeding by a non-scientific mind? If this is true, then you and I have alien blood running through our veins. In the Old Testament, chapter 1 of the book of Ezekiel recounts a vision in which Ezekiel sees an immense cloud that contains fire and emits lightning and brilliant light. It continues, quote, "The center of the fire looked like glowing metal, and in the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures," end quote. These creatures are described as winged and humanoid. They, quote, "sped back and forth like flashes of lightning," and "fire moved back and forth among the creatures," end quote. The passage goes on to describe 4 shiny objects, each appearing like a wheel intersecting a wheel. These objects could fly, and they moved with the creatures. Quote, "When the living creatures moved, the wheels beside them moved, and when the living creatures rose from the ground, the wheels also rose," end quote. What on earth had Ezekiel witnessed? Probably nothing on earth at all. This is obviously an ancient man's depiction of a UFO lighting up the sky. In fact, The Bible is full to the brim of alien history. There are powerful holy weapons that are capable of wiping out mankind, such as the Ark of the Covenant. There are angels flying down to earth, ladders to the heavens, a Messiah rising into the sky back to the heavens, floating beings, walking on water, shape-shifting, and so much more. All of this needs to be reappraised with a new outlook, an outlook of ancient alien visitation upon planet Earth. The history of mankind shall remain incomplete until we do. The aliens may have departed, but they came back, and history is full of the tales. In the second millennium before Christ, scribes of the pharaoh Thutmose III actually left us a record of ancient aliens. They saw what they described as fiery disks floating unnaturally in the sky above them. In the year 218 BC, Livy stated that there had been a portent of winter, which he wrote was in the shape of phantom ships that had been seen gleaming in the sky. In 76 BC, the Roman writer Pliny the Elder saw something very similar. He said that a spark appeared in the sky and then grew in eyes as it descended to earth until it was the size of the moon. The object then ascended back into the sky and was transformed into pure light. 2 years later, Plutarch recorded the tale of a battle commanded by Lucilius. But before battle could commence, he states, all of a sudden, the sky burst asunder, and a huge flame-like body was seen to fall between the two armies. In shape, it was most like a wine jar, and in color, like molten silver. Zoom forward in time to the 2nd century AD, and we find the Roman historian Cassius Dio telling us about, quote, a fine rain resembling silver descended from a clear sky upon the forum of Augustus, end quote. It is stated that this fine silver rain was collected and used to coat bronze coins, but by the 4th day, the silver had vanished. There is no substance known with these properties, unless these were the remains of some alien ship. In 1492, the explorers Christopher Columbus and Pedro Gutierrez observed something very strange while on the deck of the Santa Maria. They reported a light glimmering at a great distance. It vanished and reappeared several times during the night, moving up and down in sudden passing gleams. We move forward now to the 16th century and to Nuremberg in the Holy Roman Empire. Reliable historical records tell us of an amazing event witnessed by the people of the town. They saw an aerial battle in the sky of alien craft. This was followed by the appearance of a massive black triangular object and a large crash just outside of the city. This is not a minor sighting. Residents saw hundreds of spheres, cylinders, and other strangely shaped craft moving erratically in the sky. This was not just one eyewitness. This is the record of the whole town of Nuremberg, and yet history ignores it. Just 5 short years later, in Basel, Switzerland, numerous spherical objects appeared in the skies which seemed to the citizens to have emerged from the sun. A 16th century woodcutting depicts this scene in which dark spheres were witnessed hovering over the town. The spheres appeared at sunrise. Quote, many became red and fiery, ending by being consumed and vanishing, quote, wrote Samuel Cocchius in the local newspaper on this date. 100 years later, the first mention of UFOs in Slovakia is described in the Lavoka Town's chronicles. The alien vessel is described as appearing like a silver lizard in the sky. In the 18th century, the English had their own remarkable sighting above Windsor Castle. A sighting occurred at 9:45 p.m. on the evening of August 18, 1783, when 4 witnesses on the terrace of Windsor Castle observed a luminous object in the skies of the home counties of England. Quote, an oblong cloud moving more or less parallel to the horizon. Under this cloud could be seen a luminous object which soon became spherical, brilliantly lit. End quote. It is incredible that over this vast period of time, these vessels reported by eyewitnesses all appear to be silver out of all the colors that could have been chosen. Moving forward in time and across to the USA, we discover a wave of sightings that have become legendary. The mystery airship encounters began in California in 1896 and rapidly spread. Soon, reports of strange ships in the skies merged further east. There are many eyewitness accounts, and some of these describe being able to see occupants through the windows. There are even reports of physical encounters with the pilots themselves. They appear to be human, and their behavior is strange. It is said some of them claim to be from the planet Mars. These ships were fast, robust, and could travel over enormous distances unlike anything human technology had at the time. It was witnessed by hundreds of ordinary people and senators alike. And yet again, historians discount this massive amount of eyewitness data as a hoax of some kind. Who had the technology in the late 19th century to do such a thing? And why do we not have evidence of it? This is no hoax and should be taken very seriously. Why? Because it has been happening for generations and across the world. At the same time in Aurora, Texas, we discover an article in the Dallas Morning News describing an actual UFO hitting a windmill and crashing down to Earth. It is reported that the pilot was not of this world and as a Martian by the Army Signal Service officer at the scene. The alien did not survive and was actually buried near Fort Worth in the Aurora Cemetery. And what happened to the crashed UFO? It was dumped into a nearby well. Years later, Mr. Brawley Oates bought the property and cleaned out the debris from the well because he needed it as a source of water. He then went on to develop severe arthritis, which he claimed to have been the result of the contaminated water. He sealed the well with a concrete slab and put an outbuilding on top of it. Soon, more mystery aircraft were spotted, and not just in the USA. Moving lights and solid craft were spotted in the skies above Otago and elsewhere in New Zealand in 1909. All of these were reported to the newspapers, leaving behind a reliable eyewitness trail. In 1917, at the height of the First World War, witnesses saw something amazing in Portugal. Thousands of people saw the sun suddenly gyrate and then descend. Such a sight was religiously interpreted, but reality tells us that a large, shining, moving object in the sky descending to Earth is in all likelihood a UFO. We move now to Saskatchewan in Canada, and the year is 1933. Witnesses saw a large oval-shaped object that was domed at the top and slightly rounded at the bottom. It was supported by legs from a central doorway or hatch. About a dozen figures could be seen going up and down a ladder-like stairway. The occupants appeared to be slightly shorter than the average man and were all dressed in what appeared to be silver-colored suits or uniforms. All appeared to be wearing helmets or ski caps, and all were busy running around repairing the craft. Time moved on, and soon mankind was hell-bent on killing each other again in yet another world war. This time, our own flying is a little more advanced, and yet the aliens are still way ahead of us. Pilots across the world started to report strange glowing orbs flying in and around their own formations. They became known as Foo Fighters, and no satisfactory explanation other than they were UFOs has ever come forward. But what about interaction with these aliens? In Nebraska, in 1967, a police officer claimed he was taken on board a UFO by reptilian humanoids wearing a winged serpent motif. It is claimed by some that aliens would not be humanoid, but they would if they had, as the ancient texts state, created a hybrid species. The fact is that humans have been abducted for thousands of years, ever since the arrival of the reptilians. There are copious texts reporting these events, and some of the most famous are the actual characters from our religions: Moses, Abraham, Muhammad, Jesus. All of these and more have all had close encounters with what we today would call aliens. Even Mary meets the angels of light at the tomb of Jesus. There are huge gaps in our history that simply cannot be explained in any other way. How suddenly an agrarian society discovers the knowledge to become a world-leading civilization with the ability to build massive superstructures that point to specific locations in the sky. This is just one example. There are more, and they are all over the world. If mankind was creating some kind of lie about his origins, then he was doing so on a grand scale, and our modern historians are ignoring their ancestors' explanations that aliens came, took control, and took over our minds. The fact is this: ancient artifacts across the world reveal non-human intelligent creatures at the hands of machines and weapons and superior to the ordinary human being below them. Historians know this, and yet they themselves create fanciful explanations that simply do not explain the whole story. The whole picture is not taken into account at all. There is absolutely no explanation why cultures separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years all come up with the same cultural origins of extraterrestrial superhuman beings that all look and act the same. Beings from another reality, super weapons, superpowers, the ability to change shape, the serpentine reptilian appearance, the creation of civilization, the teaching of humanity, the erection of huge structures, the sudden knowledge of mankind, the forming of religions with deities and divine beings, and the forming of a line of special hybrid kings and queens. All of this is factual and worldwide. It is in every single culture and country, and it all supposedly happened separately. The truth is in the recorded history of each place. The truth is that these early historians were recording history, not creating myths. The Shining Ones came down. They set up watchers to control humans and foster civilization. But some of these watchers didn't like what they were doing and actually fell in love with humans and mated with them. The Shining Ones declared war on these watchers and tried to wipe out the bad hybrid species by causing a global flood. Ever since then, the angels have done battle with the demons, the bad with the good, and we have often witnessed these things, painted them, drawn them, and written down records. These are records left behind by people such as Enoch, And remarkably, the same things spoken of thousands of years ago are still being witnessed today. Benevolent beings saving humans from disaster, battles in the sky, a war between those that would control us and those that would set us free. It seems, therefore, from the thousands and thousands of eyewitnesses across thousands of years, that there is another reality the rest of us cannot see. It is a reality where beings of light descend to Earth in great craft and interact with humanity. You never know. One day you might meet a shining watcher and have your reality altered. The fact is that these shining ones have been visiting us for a very long time and still are. But the truth of the story of the shining ones and their watchers has been the subject of a purging by many Jewish authorities who were understandably concerned that the myths of these angels and their worship would detract the people from the worship of the one God. With this end, the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees were stricken from the accepted list and are now known as Apocrypha or Pseudographa. What we do know, though, is that these watchers continued in what has been described as the underground stream and were called egregores. The term egregir is Greek and means to rouse from sleep, be excited by passion, to be awake, or to watch. Eliphas, the 19th century magician and mystic, speaks of these egregores on numerous occasions and even links them to the giants or watchers spoken of in the Book of Enoch, saying that they, quote, take shape and have appeared in the guise of giants. These are the egregores of the Book of Enoch, termed the celestial watchers or egregores by the ancients, end quote. Levi also calls these egregores the Anakim, or shining ones, and men of renown, or giants of the Bible, and that they are expressed in the myths of various cultures, just as we have been finding. Amazingly, the infamous Necronomicon tells us about a, quote, fabulous city of Irem, end quote. Irem of the Pillars is part of Arabian magical lore and was built by the jinn, or angels, and were possibly also watchtowers or, quote, towers of the watchers. The pillars were built on the instructions of the Lord of the tribe of Ad, who are referred to in Hebrew terms as Nephilim, the giants or watchers of the shining ones, and referred to in the Book of Enoch as Irim. According to Arabian legend, this Irem is located in Rub-a-Khali, which means the empty quarter or the void. This void is space, the sky above us. The Thesaurus Temporum, translated into Latin in the mid-17th century, even gives us a chronology of events surrounding these egregores. They descended, and by 1487 BC, they had taken Enoch to paradise due to the descent of the fallen watchers. These so-called secret tales of the shining ones and watchers has fallen into secret texts through these apocryphal writings and are now curated by secret societies such as the Freemasons. It seems then that the extremely ancient concept and story of the shining ones is still very much alive and was propagated secretly by the mystics of the last few hundred years. These were very much part and parcel of their hidden secrets. The question arises, why did they feel the need to hide such secrets? Whatever the reason, it is a fact that our modern-day secret societies hold the knowledge of these ancient alien watchers. What we can see here, then, is the extent of the influence of the first origins of secret societies, both in culture and texts. These shining ones are the first on paper. They have a structure and a basis of authority. They rule over man and are all-wise, having their watchers to ensure that their instructions are carried out. Either the shining ones are still in power now generations later, or the secret societies of the globe have copied the methods, structure, and symbols of these first few. The great religions of the world have all been created by some secret method, which we now know to be the generative cause of religion. Namely, all these religions and societies are based upon the days of old when the alien created mankind, fostered them, mated with them, did battle, and then disappeared. So here we have religious and historical texts giving us evidence, plain as day, of the ancient aliens. What we need now is physical evidence, pictures, artifacts, and structures that point to their existence in space and time. In Indian folklore, the Vimana are mythological flying chariots. The Pushpaka Vimana of the king Ravana is the most quoted example of a Vimana. Vimanas are mentioned in many places in Hindu and Sanskrit, and also the Jain texts. The Sanskrit word Vimana literally means measuring out, traversing, or having been measured out. It is a car or a chariot of the gods and serves also as a throne. Some texts describe them as places with multiple stories. In some Indian languages like Tamil, Malayalam, Telugu, and Hindi, Vimana or Vimanam means aircraft. Let us not forget that these great ships in the sky were seen thousands of years before mankind had even contemplated inventing aeroplanes. In the Vedas, the Vimana is depicted 3 times, twice flying in the sky and once landed on the ground. In fact, the Vedas have many flying machines before the Vimanans, great chariots that carried the gods in the sky, in the same way as Ezekiel's wheel is seen to traverse the heavens in the Bible. The existing Rig Veda versions state that these machines were capable of jumping into space speedily with a craft using fire and water, containing 12 pillars, 1 wheel, 3 machines, 300 pivots, and 60 instruments. In the Hindu epic of Ramayana, the Vimana of Ravana is described as follows. The Pushpaka Vimana that resembles the sun and belongs to my brother was brought by the powerful Ravana, that aerial and excellent Vimana going everywhere at will, that chariot resembling a bright cloud in the sky, and the king got in, and the excellent chariot at the command of the Raghira rose up into the higher atmosphere. In Jain literature, the Vimana is a specific class of deity who dwell in the heavens. Lord Vishnu was so impressed by the devotion and singing of Saint Tukaram that when his time came, a Viman or heavenly aircraft shaped as an eagle came to take him to heaven. So these are alien beings or gods that are not of this earth and who are more powerful, wise, and knowledgeable than mankind. They travel up and down from the heavens in grand flying chariots. But there is more evidence that these aliens visited mankind from across the world. Let us take a look now at the evidence from the Pueblo people of America and the aliens they called the Kachinka. A Kachinka is a being and have brought to light a series of rituals practiced by the Hopi, Zuni, Hopi Tewa, and certain Karasan tribes, as well as in most Pueblo tribes in New Mexico. The Kachinka are supernatural beings, and today there are special dances for them and Kachinka dolls that are carved in their likeness. Each area has their own pantheon of Kachinkas, and much like the Watchers of the Mesopotamian era, they have human-like relationships and families, and they are seen as great and powerful beings. They can bring rainfall like the Elohim, healing, fertility, and protection. They are no different to the other ancient aliens we have been discovering. In Hopi tradition, the Kachinka came from the other world and settled with the Hopi. They were attacked and destroyed, and their souls returned from where they came. They left behind their clothes, masks, and instruments, and today the Hopi still dress as Kachinka and carry out rituals. There is no belief that the tales of the Kachinka are fictional. It is firmly believed that they were very real and did in fact come. Other aliens from around the world have been left to us in images we now call art. On 5,000 years ago, there are amazing images in Australia. These alien beings are known as the Wandjina and are beings represented as giants, just as we discovered when the Watchers mated with humans and created a race of giants. These aliens have no mouths or ears, with cone-shaped heads. They are in fact reptilian or serpent-like. They are no different to the Anunnaki Watchers or any other number of ancient alien sightings from around the world. And yet, these civilizations are separated by thousands of miles and vast oceans. They are also said to have bred with humanity and created a hybrid race. In Utah, there are cave paintings created by the Anasazi and Fremont Native Americans that date right back to 5000 BC. These are, simply put, depictions of the ancient aliens. Large-eyed giants called the Star People from where they came. It is said these aliens came down to Earth, created mankind, and then returned to their heavenly home. The exact same story we have been finding across the world, and a tale that can be found everywhere, from China to Europe. Even the depictions of these aliens are the same, and the powers they have are also the same. Again, the serpent is present, just as it is elsewhere. The oral traditions of the Anasazi states that these aliens bred once again with mankind and created a hybrid species that was superior to humanity. These images in stone are not fanciful fantasies. They are depicted alongside other quite normal animals, humans and plants, all depicted carefully. Why then would these images of the alien gods not also be depictions of what these ancient people actually saw? The fact is, these images are not alone. There are examples from Africa, China, Europe, and elsewhere, and all tell the same tale. All tell the story of ancient aliens that came from the heavens, are linked as bright and shining beings with serpentine imagery, genetically engineered the human race, bred with them, and created giants in the land, had amazing technology, and then disappeared. But we have to ask the question, did these aliens really leave us alone, or have they been visiting? In fact, the list is almost endless and comes right up to modern times with thousands of sightings across the globe. Bright, shining craft seen in the sky. Reptilian aliens with serpent-like aspects observing mankind. Or, as our ancestors would say, watching. And so, we have seen copious evidence that our very origins are not as we once thought. That great shining serpentine beings came down to Earth, created mankind, ruled over them for millennia, and even mated with them. we have also seen evidence that they often return in remarkably similar fashion to the ancient tales. Is it not time for historians and scientists to take this evidence seriously and alter their own perception a little?